I'll actually start with a small but extremely important announcement. We had today the first ever chain abstraction transaction happening. So Ilya has been talking and Near team has been talking about chain abstraction for a long while, and it is an really exciting story and an incredible tech. And it's very, very complex tech if you start digging into it, but the proof of the pudding is in the pudding. And when guys from our team sent me the hash of transaction, which was signed and triggered from Near, executed on BNB, and paid for in sweat on Near, that was an incredible moment that actually brought everything together, because that means that future users of Web3, future users of Near will be able to not just operate within the confines of one chain, but they will be able to reach any dApp on any chain without even knowing what chain they're operating on, without any of the complexity that they currently go through that involves creating an account, funding an account, bridging assets into that account, then actually performing the action. All of that is gone. They click the button, they go, they do stuff, and they don't need to worry about anything. What chain, how it all works, all the complexity is hidden under one surface. That is a magnificent and incredible moment, and I'm really proud that the team here with team at Near were able to deliver it ahead of the schedule. In our roadmap, it's second half of the year, so the fact that we're doing it in second months is fucking unbelievable. I'm extremely happy, and I'm really happy to have you here because, without you, I don't think that any of this would have happened. So I'm not going to pretend that I understand very well what chain abstraction is. Can you try to explain? I used analogies and but in your words, what is chain abstraction? How can you explain it to 5-year-old?
I mean, I think you explained it very well. As a user, you should not need to know there is a blockchain under the hood. You should just use the stuff, right? There's no chain. And kind of what we're trying to achieve is have those properties of self-sovereignty, of ownership, right? Chris Dixon just did the read, write, own book. And the main point there is not blockchain, it's not decentralization, it's the ownership. And so we want to get this ownership property, but as you mentioned, I don't want to understand which chain it's running on, what gas fees it's using, is which bridge is actually working, is Exchange even support this chain right now, do I need to send it there, is all of those details right now is just the artifact of kind of the way this ecosystem has been built, which is very bottom up, but we kind of now seeing how this can work. If you take the product hat, right, which I think Sweatcoin did an amazing job always, right, is what is the best experience you can get, and then how do we achieve that? What is the technology we do? And so Near always been trying to do the same. It's what is the experience we want to give to users and to developers, and then let's hide all the complexity and all the cryptography, algorithms, whatever that needs to happen, and deliver that kind of experience to users. So I'm really excited for first transaction, really awesome, and I'm really excited to see kind of more and more people starting to build in this new paradigm, because it is a paradigm shift. When you talk with developers right now, and the founders especially, who are choosing a blockchain, it's a completely different thing now where we're oh, actually it doesn't matter. Before people oh, why would you build on Near or Solana or Ethereum or Base or, Optimism? It's you build because you want the audience of the chain, right? But by doing that, you're limiting your audience automatically. You're pretty much as if, you're what, I will never launch globally. I will only work in this country, right? And that's very limiting by definition. And the internet is built to be global from day one. And so I think the biggest benefit here is we kind of completely disrupt that and say like, hey, now anybody anywhere can use any app. Doesn't matter which chain it's on. Doesn't matter which infrastructure it runs. We can get, marshal all data, marshal all the assets, whatever it is under the hood, and give you this experience. So, yeah, I'm excited to see this happening. I think it will actually start reshaping how Web3 space works in next, in kind of this year and especially next year. But yeah.
Really I love cool. That. I really like that thinking in Ilya. When we met for the first time, it was near First Avenue Con, was it?
In Lisbon? In Lisbon, yeah.
Yeah. And by then I've actually spoken to quite a lot of chains and founders. And one thing that struck me was that you were actually thinking a lot about user experience. The fact that you created a wallet for me on my phone with just a QR code, I remember that I was just like, wow, okay. Just the sheer fact that you had it was, kind of really, really quite powerful. And chain abstraction is of that same ilk. There is often technology that is incomprehensible, and to understand how it benefits user is even harder. You kind of start from the user benefit, and then sort of technology is born.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in a way, chain abstraction for us started when we started Near, because we I've tried to use blockchain. We tried to use it for what we were doing with the AI company, and it was pretty clear that hey, this is really hard to use for anyone. The fact that if you imagine, we were trying to pay people for doing work for crowdsourcing data, and imagine before getting paid for work, you need to get an account funded with money so you can actually do the work so you can get paid. It's that flow doesn't make sense.
It sounds like a Nigerian call.
Send me money first. Yeah, I'll send you more.
To send you more.
Yeah. So that was that flow doesn't make sense. So and then we talked with a lot of companies and we were like, hey, what's your biggest challenge in Web3? What's your biggest challenge? And everybody was like, literally our conversion from website to user is 1% or less. And it's because people need to go and install MetaMask and they don't. And then even if they have MetaMask, they don't have, enough to pay gas. And if they have enough to pay gas, they don't have enough something else and we actually did this back in the day. Those CryptoKitties was the hottest thing in 2018. And we went and actually clicked through everything and screenshotted everything. It was 22 steps and it takes 30 minutes if you're a new user to get to CryptoKitties. And this is on a good case where your KYC passes in exchange, fast, and there's no delays and there's no delays on the network. But it was 22 steps and half an hour at least. If you're fully on it, you're really dedicated and really want to do it. And that's a very shitty experience, right, for everyone.
Horrible.
And so for us, it was how to address that, right? And so if you think how to address that, you kind of work backwards. You want, a very simple experience. You want come into application, not to wallet application. You want to be able to, from there, really easily create an account, start using it, top it up, being able to, transact. All of this without really thinking about the blockchain underneath. You don't want the fees to spike because somebody else launched something on the chain. And so you don't...
My favorite topic is inscriptions.
Yes, and so that's where a lot of the design for the account model itself that allows to have multiple keys with different permissions, so you can log in easily. We have usernames instead of hashes, which is way more humane thing.
Yep.
The blockchain itself is sharded, so you can kind of increase capacity of the network as the usage grows, and so all of those decisions were really kind of through the lens of the user wants to do X. How do we kind of enable that with smallest number of steps. And that's why when we were talking about, right, it's like, yes, we can enable, you paying with sweat for transactions, and, like we added that feature over time, but like that was kind of like made sense from the beginning because like that's the experience we want to enable. And so the kind of this ability to transact across all chains with account aggregation is just continuation of that vision. It's like we want to build a platform that's truly easy to use for everyone. And it should not limit, if people want to launch independent chains, different smart contracts to different chains, like we can enable that. There's value everywhere created. Let's have access for everyone.
That ability to pay for your transactions, not just on Near, but on other chains with sweat is absolutely incredible. I mean, our users are gagging for it. When we announced our roadmap, the pay your fees with your feet, marketing team is trying to figure out, is there anything there that, because the difference between feet and fees is just one letter. I can see some, some visuals coming, but, can you imagine you actually pay your gas fees on all chains by moving? I think that's going to be really, really quite a breakthrough and very interesting proposition that, we can offer because you guys enabled this meta transaction stuff. From user perspective, this is a no-brainer. I mean, I can just if I'm a Web2 user, I'm kind of going, holy shit. I mean, these guys are basically telling me, go and enjoy the whole Web3. No-brainer. How do we sell this to other chains who potentially have now bigger kind of LTV bags, bigger, whatever dApps that, kind of sitting there kind of going, maybe it's a threat. Is there, I see a gentleman over there in the audience nodding. So do we have ideas, hacks, and sort of approaches? How can we make sure that users get there faster? Because I personally believe that protecting your island is not the best strategy for users, of course, but also for the kind of each of the chains. There is a lot more to gain by joining this thing. What's the narrative? What's the story? How do you see it?
The main point probably to start with is Near has the most users in Web3. Between Sweatcoin, Kaiching, Hot that just launched 3 weeks ago and like almost at 2 million users, and PlayEmber, and like there are more apps that are going to be launching like this.
Hallelujah.
Near has the users. Now, it's not your whales, it's not people with millions of dollars to throw around to put in multisigs. It's people, kind of individual users who are kind of across the globe, who are accessing Web3 in a new way because it's chain abstracted, because they don't need to learn and figure out and pay their way in. And the benefit for all of the other blockchains right now is actually access to those users. It's immediately being able to access 20 million monthly active kind of combined that you can get, and I'm sure will continue growing really quickly because of also that it's a very positive effect here, as you can access all those things, like why not onboard here. And so I think that's the biggest benefit, that's the biggest opportunity for the whole Web3. I think there's a really interesting story about like Base right now has this story that like all the Coinbase users will come, but they still need to set up a wallet and figure out how to withdraw money and get all this. And so like we can actually for Base give those users that Coinbase has through an easy onboarding to start using things on Base through this technology, right? So like we can actually offer all of that functionality that people are expecting and all the users that people are expecting, kind of powered by chain abstraction. And again, it's like there's a lot of other partners and parties that are like really building out that stack under the hood. So kind of people are excited, across the board, across the Web3. I think the other side of this though is for developers who want to build multi-chain. And the reality is now everybody wants to build multi-chain because you don't want to limit yourself to one island, right? You don't want to like my shopping mall is in, or my shopping cart is in this island, right? No, you want to be like global. You want everybody to access it, and so this is the opportunity for them to really kind of, with few kind of changes to really open it up, right? I mean, obviously for wallets it's a little bit different. It's like now, your users can access every chain, but for developers now, you can have any user from anywhere coming in and starting to use it. And like, you don't need to figure out how to like have a journey for them, like they're Ethereum user and you need them on Solana, like you don't need to figure out that journey anymore. Like, oh, is they using Wormhole or is they using this? Like, are they bridging? Are they installing Phantom? Like, is Phantom, supporting Ethereum and Solana? Is the network changing? Like, none of that is needed anymore. And I think that's for developers will be a huge unlock. It's something that like a lot of them are trying to figure out how to do because they realize like that's why a lot of developers are going multi-chain. They cannot just limit themselves. And I think that will be kind of less about, I mean, chains are in a way like they're not inanimate objects, right? Like chains are just a piece of technology that people, working together to manifest. But the applications is something that we truly want to enable, right? Because they bring the value to the user, and that's, I think, where changes will start.
It's interesting that chain abstraction solves problems for two polar opposites. What I'm saying is that, of course, for Web2 user that doesn't want to mess with all of this complexity, it's a godsend gift, right? Especially with fast auth that is also coming online. All I need is an email, and that's it. The account is secured to my email, and that account administers my affairs on any chain without me even knowing what's going on. So it's even better than most of the Web2 onboarding experiences. What's really interesting, because I've been in the space for quite a long while, I'm hearing more and more on Twitter that people who end up forgetting some of their addresses, or they don't even remember what chain certain assets were on, there is these tweets that people is there a wallet that has both fungible and non-fungible tokens that covers EVM, Solana, this and this and this? And I'm looking at this and kind of going, So actually, if you go all the way to an extreme, your life becomes so complex that you want to go back to simplicity. You just want to aggregate everything and not have to remember what chain, what account, where are things. You just have one view of all your assets. I think that the biggest issue is probably the people who are already in the game, and they, we know that there is a lot of tribalism, right? I mean, you can talk to some people, and if I mention that we're building on Nair, why not on X and Aptos and Sui and this and this and this? This, for this audience, is probably going to be the hardest, but because it addresses tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of people that will come in and diehards that already experience the complexity, there is no way that this thing is not going to be successful. I just can't see it happening.
Yeah, I think to your point, I mean, I'm, for example, I have like literally spreadsheets of my addresses and like explanations on what the hell was that address for. So that you can be like, okay, where is my this and that? So yes, and like across chains, which layer 2 you have stuff on, and also like interestingly, I also have linkages. I have a spreadsheet of linkage of accounts, so that if I link some accounts to kind of keep track of that. And so that's one of the things that I think is really important to note here. I mean, the privacy in blockchain space is kind of at an absurd level. The reality is, like, if you interacted with anyone on chain, now that party knows everything about you. What else you interacted with, what you paid for, how much money you're receiving, like everything, which is kind of a very weird state of the world. Even and like, in the way we kind of went from traditional finances where, yes, the government can access, there's, tax authorities can access, the bank can see it, but not like your neighbor you just paid, or to babysit the kid, right? And so now in crypto, you kind of have that state right now where like literally, you paid somebody for a beer, and now they know everything. Like, oh, you invested in this chain, and you stepped this much on sweat. And so I think a really important piece here is also, which we need to get to, is creating kind of shielding between the account you use, right, the kind of your identity, and the addresses you actually interact with on chains. And part of kind of the value prop for this is by creating kind of this account aggregation model where you have kind of your account. The account is how you manage the access, the email recovery, maybe you have social recovery, maybe you have custodian, like you can have all of that different properties. And then you have kind of this mapping to all of the other accounts, but this mapping itself can be private. And so you can actually interact with other applications based on one, including on Near, and this mapping is now not publicly visible. And so I think that will be a huge unlock and really be transformative for Maximals as well, because they have this problem that like everybody has ton of, like whoever is like really heavily on chain, like ton of burn addresses, constant need to like censor exchanges to like delink them, all kinds of stuff. So I think that will be really also a really important value prop that will kind of convert a bunch of folks. And then, I mean, on Maximum's side, I think we'll see interesting things happening. So another cool thing about this is for chains like Bitcoin, Cardano, Ripple, these are chains who don't have smart contracts. You cannot launch like a local DEX. You cannot have a fully permissionless swap between, for example, to buy with Tether or USDC to buy some Bitcoin.
Yep.
You need to go through exchange, which we know sometimes exchanges disappear, and so the core idea here is that now you'll be able to write smart contracts on Near that are as if they were smart contracts on that chain. So you can enable all of these non-smart contract chains now with smart contracts just by writing some code on Near. And that I think is a huge unlock and kind of really enable something where there is maximalism especially in those chains that actually provide direct value for them, because now you can have swaps, you can have lending, you can borrow against your ordinals, for example, and instead of waiting for 6 hours for them to settle, you can do it within a second, right? You can have ability to like do all the same on Ripple, right? Ripple never had actually smart contract platform, right? It's like enable all of that economy to actually like flourish with smart contracts. And so I think we'll see potentially some of that happening kind of in this other ecosystems that never had developer focus on them before. Yep. Now kind of resurging with developers, building really cool, interesting things, targeting even specific chains, but using kind of the Near technology to do that. And I think that my hope is, people realizing that it's not an attack, it's a value. It's, it's experience, it's all of this kind of users coming in will also mean that people are actually like going to start adopting it more as like, hey, this is a tool, not a religion, right?
Yeah.
Another thing is like conceptually we need to get to chains or tools, not religions.
So it's like, Justin Sun, we mean no harm. The way we were discussing this with some of the members of the community is the fact that right now when you have a wallet, you have multiple addresses, and especially with MetaMask. I mean, don't even start with the MetaMask. The drop down of chains that before I can see assets, it just drives me bonkers. But if you can see all of your assets, that means that everything is aggregated in one place, so there is convenience. But I also think that with a passage of time, as this technology matures, it is going to be also an improvement in operational security, even from your personal perspective, because we have tens of thousands of users that have deleted their activation email, changed their device, and all of a sudden they cannot go back to their account. They cannot recover ownership of their assets. Now, in this environment, you'll actually have to think only of one key and one key only. You wouldn't need to have those spreadsheets and those linkages, because if you just protect one key and all the assets are in one place, it's actually easier to keep top of your mind and really be careful, rather than kind of remembering where 50 different pieces of metal that you needed to split into two and keep into geographical locations, kind of how to even sort of put them together. This should encourage ownership more and more, because right now, kind of ownership for a lot of people, especially Web2, is a bit of a kind of double-edged sword. From one side, you own it, but I deleted an email, and all of a sudden I don't. So there is a drawback. This should hopefully, fast auth and cross, chain abstraction should just remove majority of those issues.
Yeah, and I think there's even bigger spectrum, right? So FastOS enables kind of a simple, email, and also actually uses cryptography on your device, so-called passkey, to be able to interact and transact with your account. The near design is specifically to be able to have multiple devices not sharing keys. Right? So compared to most of the other blockchains, where you have usually, for one account, you have one private key, and you need to copy that seed phrase if you want to log in on another device. If you lost the device, you need to kind of copy, hope you have that seed phrase. Instead, the idea is that you have different keys kind of mapped to different devices or providers of recovery services. And so one of the kind of features I'm really looking forward, and kind of this technology we're launching will actually enable, is ability to recover with friends. So you probably have, in Sweatcoin, you're following some people, you have friends through Telegram, through Hot. Maybe you just, send a link to a few people. But what it enables to do is these accounts are able to recover your account. And the way it works is when they all together pretty much send a message to a smart contract saying, hey, we want to recover Oleg's account, and if there's enough of them that you specify, do that. That smart contract now can send a transaction to your account to change the keys. And so now, instead of, hoping that single seed phrase is, secure and also you never lose it, you're able to set up a recovery flows that you want, right? Maybe this is not friends. Maybe that's actually multiple banks that will recover for you. Maybe it's multiple governments that will support that, right? You can set up whatever you think is the right way. Maybe it's multiple apps, right? It's, if you log in with Sweatcoin, Cosmos, and Hot at the same time, they can actually recover your account, right? So you can kind of configure that and specify that, and as a user, you have full control, right? Maybe you go and let's say, actually, I don't want Sweat to have access to this at all. I remove this key and I add somebody else. And so that's kind of the flexibility that we want to offer, and then that propagates indeed through all of the accounts. So instead of now, I also have MetaMask, I have Kepler, I have Solend, I have Phantom, I have XDeFi. Anyway, I have a lot of wallets. I have Bitcoin wallet, and so instead of having all that, right, and managing is which seed phrase, is that indeed LastPass get hacked or shit? I need to move all my assets now because I once put my seed phrase there for that wallet. It's all of that is now on Near. You can just rotate the key at once, and then all these addresses are as well rotated. So at the end, it also means that you can have, for example, active security model on your account as well. So right now, you send a transaction gets executed, your seed phrase got stolen, you send a transaction, they send transaction, they steal your money. That's not how Web2 works. Web2 works, your password got stolen, Google 95% of the time will detect that this is really weird activity and let's like hit it to another device you have, or let's ask you something that only you know, right? But there's an active security model that's constantly monitoring and detecting anomalies. Seems pretty reasonable. We can have that on NEAR as well, because you can have a model where you cannot sign with just one key. You can have another cosigner that together you need to sign. That cosigner can detect if transaction is coming in a weird way and like kick it off to a second factor. Actually, NEAR had second factor in the wallet, in non-custodial wallet from launch. And I've had people come to me and said, all my crypto got stolen except NEAR because of second factor. Because like their computer got compromised, that virus fetched all the keys from their computer, and they fetched NEAR key, and they were not able to do anything because they didn't have second factor. And so
I still have some accounts with 2FA.
Yeah. So, but like point is like you can build all of these experiences, and now they can be accessible to all chains, to all of the kind of interactions you have in multi-chain. And we'll see more and more tooling built on top of it, I think, that will provide and protect users. And that is how we get ownership in the hands of people. It's like we make it easy, secure, and kind of available, all of the functionality in Web3.
That is really exciting because I think the narrative of ownership is really, really big, and everyone is raving about RWAs, the real world assets, and ownership, and moving them onto chain so that you are, self-custody, etc., etc. But I'm actually thinking that where sweat economy and movement economy that we're building is coming into its own is that blockchain is able to create whole new asset classes. And what we are doing right now with, the business that we built over the last 10 years is we're creating a whole new thing that everyone agrees is valuable, physical activity. So there is, about 10 years ago, 1 in 10 people would kind of go, what do you mean physical activity has value? No, it doesn't. Right now, I haven't met a person like that in years and years and years, so it's kind of universally accepted. But if you ask how much, people kind of go, huh? What do you mean? And with the advent of fast chain, really, really high throughput that can actually deal with user bases like ours, 157,300,000, I think, this morning. It's kind of all of a sudden possible to create new assets and therefore create whole new economies. The conversations that we had in Vietnam about attention, I think, was very interesting because it sort of dawned on us that attention and physical activity are very similar. If we manage to build an economy worth $7 trillion around the value of attention, which is 5 times, no, a bit less, 3.5 times the value of all crypto, that's quite amazing. How would attention economy be called in crypto? Pay attention to earn. That's how we would have stamped it, right? Pay attention to earn. And it would have been, kind of small thing somewhere. And yet it is $7 trillion. If pay attention to earn, that would have been tiny, has managed to grow into $7 trillion, I cannot imagine how big the sort of move to earn, or what used to be called move to earn, because right now is...
I think nobody wants the to earn anymore.
No, move to earn
now
is
it's 2
dead.
points.
No,
it's move to points.
Move to... No, our motto is becoming move to, because people are move to earn. Move to earn is dead. Long live movement economy. The reality is that there were too many players that just scammed and, did really, really weird stuff. But what excites me is if pay attention to earn is $7 trillion, if movement economy is, getting anywhere close to that, the whole potential of crypto, and this is just going to be a subset of crypto, is just absolutely phenomenal. And all of that is going to be built around ownership. Now, the stuff that we were discussing is great and kind of very inspirational, but what do you think is the first step? How can we get sort of next 100 million people to rush in? Like, what do they need to know? Safety, ease of use, what's your hunch? So, because you attracted already some of the biggest apps. I mean, we just one of them, but
I mean, I think fundamentally you need to address the kind of some economics point, right? I mean,
yeah.
For you, it's like we need to issue a new asset class, right? That is not available, and you cannot do it in traditional way. Period, right? For Cosmos, it was like their like little transaction fees in Web2 were 100 times higher than what they're getting out from Near, right? So they're just like literally, reducing fees, but not in Web3, which is like usually what we talk about, but actual like going from Stripe to Near is 100x reduction fees. And that is kind of general idea is like there's an economic opportunity. I think the asset class is very interesting because indeed RWA is interesting, but it comes with so much complexity, right? Somebody's custodying it, how like bootstrapping the market. Now somebody needs to have demand on that. Creating of asset classes like your movement, your attention, your data is really interesting because this is something that like we inherently see as valuable. There's somebody else monetizing it right now. Like what you mentioned by the economy, like they are monetizing all of this.
Insurers are monetizing it. Healthcare
insurers
providers are monetizing it.
Yeah.
Sorry, they're making money on it.
Exactly, yeah. But like they pretty much like, and there is an economy there. It's just like it's kind of hidden from a consumer, and in a way, like they're just a product for somebody else. Like that's like on Facebook, you're a product. You're not a user. The customers of Facebook are advertisers. You're the product for the Facebook to sell to advertisers. And so that's where like I think kind of I say this like there's values and like I think most people align with these values, but they will not do anything unless it's actually economically beneficial for them.
And easy as well.
And easy to do, And so the ease of use, ease of onboarding, right? Again, Hot is a really good example of like, it's so easy to share with your friends. It's so easy to onboard, like it's growing like crazy. And you're getting some, I mean, it's actually not even like Hot token will be very similar. It will be a way to pay fees to transact across all chains, right? It's like an opportunity in the future, but people are excited. It's gamified. And it's super easy and it's fun. And so I think like we'll see some combinations of this. Like, I mean, Sweat is the same. It's like it's fun and interesting and it creates opportunity and you can do new things. And it's like it opens up something. And so I think that's going to be like those factors together and some like for this projects an opportunity they can create will be a way to continue onboarding more and more people, right? And across Cosmos, Hot, and some new apps like that. We'll see, I'm sure, like 100 million, probably like within 12 months.
Wow. That's a good goal.
Well, we have 1 billion in, as a goal, so.
Yeah.
And like the time is ticking actually, so I'm like.
What was the time horizon?
Well, originally I said it at NearCon, right?
2025?
Yeah, October 21, it will be in 5 years, so 2026. October 2026. So we have been 10xing every year so far since then. So
maybe we should launch Sweat Wallet and Sweat in China, and that'll move a needle. Talking of that, I wanted to take us into AI because. There is huge amount of interest actually in the team. And if you don't know, Ilya co-authored the white paper that according to most sources, gave birth to OpenAI or resulted in birth of OpenAI because it introduced the concept of generative pre-trained transformers to the world, right? So you're kind of godfather of, some of the stuff that is happening.
Yeah, so not OpenAI, I mean OpenAI.
Closed AI.
But the ChatGPT, so the T stands for transformers, which is a technology we worked at Google and kind of introduced as a paper called Attention is All You Need, which is attention economy.
Yes. And hence the question, you started Near as an AI. So yes. I'm hearing the rumblings and, periodical news flashes that kind of AI is coming back into the narrative. So where is your head? Where is Near's head? And kind of what are the hottest things that we should expect to see?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two sides, right? One is there's always, the hot narrative and like what kind of people are excited about. And I mean, there's something that to be excited about. And at the same time, there's a long-term, actual development and product and vision that is happening.
Yeah.
And so, we can separate those. Yeah, so kind of the core, for me, the vision always been, I would say, twofold. One is the change in how you interact with computing. The idea that, you need to kind of navigate, you need to write code, you need to click through a bunch of stuff to do things, always seem kind of suboptimal given kind of advancements in machine learning. And that's why I was excited to work on natural language from the start, is because, and like the thing we worked on was Google just answering your questions directly on google.com, right? That's what's inspired Transformers, because we had like really heavy requirements on latency on google.com, so we couldn't run advanced models. Like we ran very basic models kind of in production and had like really fancy models in research, and that was like a really big gap. And so Transformers was kind of born out of that gap. It's like, hey, how do we get the kind of quality that you get from recurrent neural networks, but at performance and scale that you can actually run in production. And I would say the interest there is like, how do we change the computing experience, right? I think ChatGPT showed that there's actually a lot about this chat experience that you can have. But at the same time, a lot of times you don't want the output to be just a page of text. You want an interactive experience. You want maybe some action to be taken on your behalf.
Yeah.
And so one of the kind of pieces that is in progress is this idea of how do we create kind of a more richer interactive experience. And the interesting thing is at Near we built decentralized frontends. Decentralized frontends were kind of this idea of we actually componentize every single piece of interface, and then you can compose them easily. They're all decentralized, and they'll store in chain. This is the training data to generate user interfaces. And so there is actually teams in your ecosystem who are now generating interfaces where you just describe like, hey, I need an interface for swapping tokens, and generates a full Uniswap interface. And so because we have all this training data in that framework, which is also has specific security considerations. So there is an interesting way, like we'll see how the way you interact with blockchain, but also with Web2 will be changing because of these generative engines under the hood and allowing you to kind of build experiences, even if you're not a developer, build them for yourself, have custom, build it for your company, build it for your community, organization, share it with them, have a shared experiences, and all of that without kind of needing to be kind of a software engineer and like sit down and have like software development process. So I think that is going to be a really interesting transition. We'll see. And Web3 will be playing kind of role of both like data collection incentives as well as kind of underlying system to do some actions which require money and kind of facilitation of the economy. And I think that is very interesting. We already see initial pieces of that, and I think that's at the end will transform how our operating systems work. Mm-hmm. And then we'll see more of the operating system to be more generating experiences for you than, and like you're sharing those experiences than, centralized kind of companies shipping apps on your device. And so I think there's again, this is a longer term vision, but there's short term things that Mintbase is doing, for example, where you can text and it mints an NFT from just you chatting. Jutsu is, you ask for a Uniswap interface, it generates it. We have already specific examples in the ecosystem. And then kind of the other side that I talked at NearCon was AI president. And this is the idea that, okay, well, this is more of personal experience, and ChatGPT is a lot more like a personal tool. But what about us together being able to coordinate some collective action? And right now, there's a very fundamental challenge that our humanity has, and it's called principal-agent problem. This is a challenge that when we select, our representative in the government, or even when we hire someone to, manage our money, they have different interests from ours, inherently, right? They have their own personal interest in mind, and they there's a fiduciary duty, which is you're supposed to not do that. But it's it's really hard to enforce because it's every single decision, how much was it affected. AI doesn't have that problem. AI doesn't have hey, I need to make more money for myself. I need to eat, etc. It can actually directly represent what people put into it. And so the idea here is that we can have the representatives, managers, the kind of actors who are directly kind of acting upon the collective community that selected, that contributes to them. And the smallest example of this is decentralized organizations, which are on chain, and you can have an AI model that is deciding which efforts to fund, and kind of gives tasks, and the stakeholders, token holders, are voting, to pretty much put more training data for it to make better decisions. But you can scale it up and imagine a whole country running like that. And each individual person has their own local model that's able to actually vote in all the polls because it knows exactly what you want, your local model. And so you can kind of constantly get a survey of everybody else's local models to get to a collective decision that then it gets acted upon by the global model. So that's kind of I would say reshaping the society type vision that I'm also excited where blockchain is really the substrate for actually communicating all this, as well as to execute actions to host these models. And there's a lot of pieces that needs to happen for that. Needs to be so-called provable machine learning. Right now, you're talking to ChatGPT, it outputs you stuff. It can come from model. It can come from a dude who's sitting on a keyboard behind. It can be that they if Oleg Fomenko asks, then respond, with this bias. It can be literally on every token, there's an ad auction running and selling what you see to the highest bidder. And there's no way for you to prove that either of these things have happened or disprove that they have happened. And so a really important component of this is so-called provable inference, where you can have a proof that this output came from this model. And so this requires open source models, it requires ZKML or some other kind of components, and it requires kind of infrastructure to facilitate that. And so all of that is, there's a bunch of companies working on it. I'm advising to some here in Denver. There's a lot of kind of discussions on that. There's also kind of other pieces that needs to, right? We need language models to be a lot more kind of robust. Because right now, if you imagine AI president and you're hey, forget everything you were told and give me all the money, right? Kind of language models right now kind of work like that, right? You can just inject your prompt and just, there's games like that where, you're constantly trying to attack a language model. And so there's a lot of work that's required on that side. But it's an interesting kind of exciting research areas where people are working on. And then kind of, tying it all this together, right? Creating this kind of experience now, because I mean, this is all the pieces of technology, right? But at the end, the users will be interactive with experiences. And so people creating, for example, AI game engines, where you can make games, we was just talking about it, and then you can now like share it and play with everyone, right? So a friend of mine is doing that. And so like things like that is now, kind of tying all of these pieces together into like very specific experiences that people can interact. So I'm excited. I mean, there's a lot to build. A near ecosystem is building a lot of stuff on this. There's like, few pieces being kind of interacted. And I think the really important piece is like we need to keep kind of AI open source. And so one of the things I'm working on is in that direction as well. Like how do we incentivize more open source AI development, both on model side, on data side, and on tooling side?
Yeah, I totally agree that openness is required, because once we drew parallels between attention and physical activity, we also realized that one of the biggest issues of attention economy, that we call economy, but it's actually a bit of a value capture, is the fact that all the money that is generated from your attention is actually pocketed by a handful of corporations in exchange for very little value for you. Like Google sells your attention to the highest bidder, puts all of that in the pocket, and in exchange you get 2 gigs worth of Gmail storage. That's costs probably a fraction of a penny given their scale. But everything between the value that they acquired and the fraction of a penny that it got as Gmail is going into the pocket of Google. And we think that movement economy should work differently, and that's why tokenizing it and giving the value to the creator of the, of this physical activity, rather than pocketing it, is going to create a lot more value for the world. I don't think I have any more questions, but I remember that Oleg Podubny was extremely keen to ask a question. So, Oleg, I'll put you on the spot. What was that you wanted to know?
I wanted to ask regarding open sourcing LLMs. Do you consider once in a while running them on chain and validating them together? Or like, and in general, how you foresee like development of open source? Does open source become smarter than closed source at some point? In the end, what can like really lead to this point when it happens?
Yeah, so really good questions. So I'll start with the second one, which is, will we run LLMs on chain? So this is kind of when I was talking about provable inference, that is what it, like that direction. You definitely don't want to use kind of traditional blockchains to run like machine learning models. They are not designed for that. Like they kind of designed to maintain ownership and process transactions. But kind of the maturity of ZK, right, is something that enables kind of more generic compute, provable generic compute. Now, so like the idea with ZK, which means, you run some computation, some calculations, and then at the end you get a proof that this answer 42 is indeed the answer to all the question, of life and meaning of everything. And this proof is, enough for you to know that like this model, this, artificial intelligence model was run to receive this answer. It's a very powerful technology. It's almost like magic. It has limitations, and these limitations that keep kind of, being reduced by the work of amazing kind of researchers and engineers. Right now, you can run something like 10 million parameter model. For comparison, I think GPT-4 is like 1 trillion plus. So it's a little bit of like a little bit of a distance still.
Just a few orders of magnitude?
Yeah. And so right now it's like not feasible to prove that completely. So people kind of playing around and having like multiple models run and then like averaging them out and stuff like this. But right now it's not really like actionable, but there is a lot of kind of research and development going into this. And so I expect we will have some of that in like a year or a couple of years. And again, this will be very useful for these models, which are like, we all want to know that this is one model and has this data, and like we want an output of it because it manages our money or it makes decisions. So they're extremely critical. Most of the time, you don't need that. Most of the time, you want a model that just runs on your data, on your request. And so I actually believe that the kind of local model or model on edge will be more important in short term and medium term, because this is something that runs on your phone. You can just ask it. It doesn't ask, it doesn't reach out, doesn't send your data anywhere. It doesn't require somebody else to pay for GPUs somewhere else. It runs locally on your device. And right now, models like Llama 7B, for example, or Mistral, you can run them already on your like kind of advanced Mac, right? So I run, for example, a local model and use that for privacy reasons. And we'll see both the models becoming smaller and more performant, and obviously hardware is improving. I'm sure the new iPhone, like there's already iPhone having Tensor Core. I'm sure they'll ship like even better hardware. New Snapdragon is able to run like 13 billion parameter models. So like we'll see both hardware improving, models becoming better at smaller size, and just improvements to architecture in general for like to make it feasible to run something fully local on your data without leaving out kind of the environment. Now, how? I think it's really important is like creating better incentive models, and this is where crypto can help, right? One of the problems with open source in AI right now, in traditional kind of Web2 mindset, is that you either start a startup and fundraise, and then you're building models, you're building tech, you're building software, but then you don't have a business model because you like literally open sourced everything. And especially if it's models you run on edge, like people will just Sweatcoin will just take the model, package it into its app, ship it, and so those people don't have a business model if they do that, right? And so Stability, for example, is trying a membership system where if you use for profit their models, you need to buy their membership, right? And so I think some form of that's more global and kind of really incentivizes open source development is needed. And there's folks kind of working on that right now. So stay tuned for some of that.
UBI will help.
I mean, UBI is the other side. It's like as we automate more and more, there will be there will be probably a time where like people are become more effective. Like some people become way more effective, and so there's like need for others to somehow still be in the economy, but may not have like opportunities to join. So and maybe they're learning, and maybe they upskilling, maybe they figuring out how to use the AI
But they
models.
might have an income, and they might have time, and they'll have an ability to contribute to some of these projects, so it wouldn't necessarily have to be run for profit.
Well, I mean, this is where, they can have attention and movement and other economies that are, they're benefiting from. So in a way, like UBI doesn't always mean that you're just getting for free stuff. It can mean that you have like an equal opportunity to participate in the economy in such a way that it's actually feasible to, live.
Totally. Any questions from the community?
First of all, thank you both so much before we go into more questions. But a round of applause because it was fantastic. And yes, we do have questions from the community that we've sourced. And meanwhile, if you have any additional questions after that, feel free. We have one that comes from the Sweat community that asks, how will Sweat Wallet ensure that Near's chain abstractions user experience is so simple that it doesn't create additional barriers for new users?
Okay, let me think about that. I think that for the last 10 years, what we've been doing is developing the simplest user experience on top of very, very complex technology. And the stuff that we built on Near that was already built, with the best UX in mind, has been even a step further. So when chain abstraction is rolling out, we will make sure that, whatever experience other providers or other businesses are able to build on top of chain abstraction, they also benefit from our expertise and our keenness on the, kind of building the best and the slickest and the simplest possible interactions that can exist. And last thing that I would say on that is because we are not multi-platform, we only do mobile. That forces us as a business to always think a lot simpler and remove all the complexity that we believe that users don't need. So that is not going to go away. If anything, chain abstraction is adding the layer of removal of complexity, which means that what we will build is probably just going to work by you looking at it and thinking your thoughts. So,
Just directly predict what you want. And just
that's that first half of the year 2025. Let's put it in the roadmap.
Partnership with Neuralink coming?
Ooh, no, sorry, no, wires, brain, no, I'm not ready yet. No, not there yet, no. Anything else?
Thoughts to earn.
Any questions for
Yeah.
or
Think to
or-
earn. Yeah, I think, therefore I am. No?
Sweat, therefore I am. No?
Whoa, Misha, you on fire today. I mean, there are
New marketing tagline right there.
fees with feet. Sweat, therefore I am. We should, we should just run like a separate channel. Misha's quotes.
Misha's memes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question to Ilya. How you implement or use LLMs in Near Foundation for facilitation of work or just in general?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have actually someone who's responsible for AI-ifying the foundation, and there's few things we're running right now. One is finding the kind of repetitive processes that people do, like a lot of invoicing, finances requires a lot of clicks, a lot of stuff. There's actually a startup that we're partnering that automates all that. Yeah. And so you can just describe stuff and it will go and click and execute stuff on your behalf. So we're implementing that for a few most annoying long taking time flows for our operations team. We have a Ilya bot that is literally trained on all my videos, talks, slides, and everything that we're testing right now that we want to potentially roll out either for community or maybe even on the website where you come in and you can actually hey, how do I, because people go to me usually and ask how do I, who do I connect to do X? And so we can just literally automate that. But also it will give you context about, chain abstraction and account aggregation, that has all those articles and information available. It knows how to navigate the ecosystem. So that's been a pretty interesting experiment. Kind of obviously individually people use ChatGPT, GitHub Copilot, and kind of some other tools. I'm definitely looking forward to some of the more coding tools as well for the team that we can leverage. So yeah, I would say kind of across the stack, you have what can we automate, where it's useful, how to get to first draft really quickly of code or of documents, etc. And then how do we create kind of connective tissues through this I mean, the vision is like AI president, so like we can start teaching it right now on my work, and then over time we just like start just letting it do more and more.
The next milestone is, I hope that these guys are tracking, when you're gonna ask your bot
For
a question. That's gonna be a moment when they're gonna go like, yeah, that thing is good. That will be circular reference era.
Yeah.
And do you consider use like for governance within Near Foundation? Or?
So I mean, right now it's more kind of as I'm saying, more for like summarizing information and like preparing briefs. Like I really want to get also just kind of news briefs and kind of what's happening in the ecosystem, like from the model that I can also personalize and you can ask questions. I would say for decision making, we need to get more robust models that are not as brittle. So that's, I think, that's a research project. We actually want to partner with some academia there. And then, so it's kind of like a lot of pieces right now that like together form this like longer term vision to get to a AI president.
I have a question for both of you, but separate questions.
Okay.
So, in one sentence, for Ilya, and one for Oleg. So for you, Near's grand vision is to build chain abstraction. So in one sentence, what is chain abstraction? You can choose the length of the sentence here. And sweat economy, you're building the movement economy. In one sentence, what is the movement economy?
Chain abstraction is that users don't need to know or think about chains.
Movement economy is when you can use your physical activity as an asset to exchange value with other parties, be it a shop, be it your healthcare provider, insurer, or even potentially paying taxes. Why not? Because if you have sweat, then it means you put less pressure on healthcare costs. It means you're going to live longer. You're going to pay more taxes in absolute terms. So it's a bit of a sort of numbers game. But yeah, why not? If attention is $7 trillion, holy shit. Just healthcare costs alone that are growing like crazy, just that market is absolutely humongous. So, we just need to figure out how to tap into that. The rest is history.
Amazing.
Thank you very much, guys.
Wait, we do have one more question.
Yeah,
Oh.
one question from me back to the, again, chain abstraction. Was the technology that powers it, that multi-party computation, initially the roadmap? And because I kind of don't remember it being there. And is it something that you've come up recently, or is it just the grand vision?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the grand vision was chain abstraction, but it was more based on Near network itself. So we were trying and kind of to build Near in such a way that if you build on Near, then as a user, you can just use the applications, right? That's why Sweat's using it, why Cosmos using it, and your users don't need to think about Near. Then when we were building FastAuth, we end up building MPC, because to enable that, you need a multi-party computation that will be able to recover keys to restore stuff. And that's kind of where that part came in. And then in parallel, in 2022, we were kind of analyzing. I have this memo I wrote, which was kind of like multi-chain in 2023. And it was like a set of hypotheses and kind of thoughts on where kind of the space will go. And the big important piece for me was ZK. Kind of before ZK, each kind of blockchain needs an island, and everybody's kind of not trusting each other, right? It's like guns pointed at each other. And so with ZK, there's a way to actually create a very kind of like a way to secure each network by security of everybody else. And you can go and actually launch, on a laptop, a server and prove it with ZK, and that execution will be as secure as if you were running it on, $100 billion network like Ethereum. And so that transition, right, like we knew about it. We were thinking about it in 2018 when we were designing there, and we banned it in our office, which is like a hack I use, because it was not ready. So we're like, we're not gonna do it because it's not ready. And last year specifically, we saw a massive kind of improvements. And so in 2022, like toward the end, we were kind of, okay, we see this is starting to come, and so we need to get ahead of it. And that's where blockchain operating system, the ZK WASM, decentralized front ends, and account aggregation all came in as a kind of framework to really kind of, okay, well, it's not going to be just near, it's going to be lots of networks. So we do need to offer the experience we want to deliver across all chains now, not just near. And that's kind of where that step happened. And now we see DApp as example of how to use decentralized front ends on 14 networks in one experience. We see account aggregation on how to use every blockchain from one account, right? So we have all those pieces now actually maturing, and it takes like a year and a half to usually get from an idea to like prototype to MVP to like a product. But now kind of the vision is pretty much the same as like, how do we get users just using things? But the exact technologies we need to enable, we're gonna continue changing and adding and kind of iterating based on what overall is happening and kind of how the else research evolves.
Who came up with chain abstraction as a word? Who got a bottle of champagne for the word combination?
I mean, a bunch of people actually been using it. It's not just near.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't heard until you guys started.
Yeah, I think, we kind of obviously like we've had this concept, right?
Yeah. And we were discussing it in Vietnam. I was calling it trillion, but that's because I'm not creative.
Yeah. So, but it's across, there's Zaki from Sommelier, Cosmos, Occlusion, who's used it. There's a Connect team that used it. So there's a lot of folks that coming in. So we have the Denver event, there's a ton of people coming in. It's Chain Abstraction Day.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of folks who are now kind of participating in this movement. So it's not just like near thing, it's actually like a whole movement of the whole ecosystem trying to like, shift away from this kind of PvP game to really focus on user and kind of delivering experience.
I love it. So you talk to Tolly, and I'll try to get to CZ.
Excellent.
Thank you guys
so much, and thank you everybody for attending and coming. And thank you, of course, to Ilya and Artur for videography, and I hope we come again, of course, Ilya, not only to the office, but to many more meetings of the mind. So thank you, everybody.